Have you ever wondered how little it takes to reveal the true character of a person? Perhaps you think it demands years of observation, countless conversations, or moments of crisis. Yet I tell you, to know who stands before you, you need only watch three things: their relationship to desire, their relationship to truth, and their relationship to power. These three are the subtle tectonic plates beneath every polite gesture, every casual word. They are the deep rivers that shape the visible landscape of personality, and they never lie. A man may disguise his words, dress himself in virtues, and smile with impeccable courtesy, but sooner or later, the mask will slip in how he loves, how he speaks the truth, and how he wields or submits to power. Some of you come to me troubled, whispering in the darkness, "Why do I fall for people who betray me? Why do I sense duplicity in others, but ignore it? Why do I repeat the same mistake, giving my soul to those who feed on it?" Let me tell you, it is because you have not learned to read these three vital signs in others or in yourself. And nothing is more dangerous than blindness to the hidden motives of the heart. For the unconscious does not simply hide secrets. It orchestrates your entire life from behind the curtain. If you cannot decipher its language, you will mistake poison for water, a cage for shelter, and a predator for a lover. Look first at a person's relationship to desire. Desire is the primal spark that ignites the human engine. It is the ID, the raw, volcanic core of our being. But some have become strangers to their own desire. They speak modestly of wanting little, of being content with crumbs, of having no great ambition. Beware, for such disavowal often conceals a secret wish to be desired, to be rescued, to be praised for their sacrifice. And when they do not receive this tribute, resentment ferments in silence. Others speak endlessly of what they want, making grand declarations of passion and intention, yet take no action to claim it. They dwell in the pleasure of longing, never crossing into the territory of reality. Their words are like perfume, intoxicating, but insubstantial. Desire for them is a fantasy designed to dazzle both themselves and their audience. They're true. Character is not measured by what they say they want, but by what they endure to obtain it. And then there are those who pursue desire without conscience, trampling others underfoot. They are led by a blind ID, unchecked by superego or reason. For them, the world is a banquet, and every person merely a dish to be consumed. Such people reveal themselves quickly, for their hunger leaves a trail of casualties, broken trusts, used lovers, friendships devoured. Yet even they are often charming at first, skilled at camouflaging appetite as affection. Watch carefully. When desire whispers, they listen to no other voice. Consider now the second measure, the relationship to truth. I have spent a lifetime dissecting words, dreams, and slips of the tongue, because truth never dies. It may hide itself, twist itself, disguise itself, but it insists on being heard. And so I observe how a person speaks of small things. Do they confess uncertainty, or must they always appear certain? Do they admit ignorance, or must they dominate every conversation? The one who cannot tolerate being wrong, who cannot say, "I don't know," lives in terror of truth. For truth threatens the fragile fortress of their ego. Yet truth is not merely spoken, it is lived. Watch how someone's actions align, or do not align, with their words. A man says he values kindness, but humiliates the waitress who brings his coffee. A woman speaks of loyalty, but betrays secrets for a fleeting sense of power. Their unconscious reveals itself through contradiction. The true self is betrayed not by grand pronouncements, but by the minor lapses where the superego dozes and the id surges forward. These fissures are the windows through which I glimpse a person's soul. And finally, examine their relationship to power. This is perhaps the most delicate and dangerous realm, for it is where the ego performs its highest balancing act between the demands of the ID the dictates of the superego, and the relentless pressure of reality. Some people worship power, genuflecting before titles, money, influence. They become sycophants, willing to trade integrity for proximity to those they perceive as powerful. In them, the superego whispers that safety lies in submission. They mistake obedience for virtue. Others despise power, speaking of it as corrupt, dirty, something only tyrants pursue. But examine closely, for sometimes this hatred masks envy. Those who renounce power often yearn for it secretly, resenting. Others who possess what they themselves are too fearful to claim. Their scorn becomes a shield, protecting them from the shame of their own impotence. And there are those who seize power without hesitation, exerting dominance over lovers, friends, colleagues. They mistake control for connection, thinking that to be loved is to be obeyed. But true power does not shout. It does not crush. It radiates. It inspires. It flows from a person whose ego has made peace with both ID and superego, who neither denies desire nor bows to it, who can wield authority without being intoxicated by it. Such people are rare, and they shine like a lighthouse in a storm. When you wish to know someone truly, observe these three things: how they handle their own hungers, how they engage with truth, and how they navigate power. But I warn you, do not expect to see only beauty, for within each of us lie shadows, primal urges, hidden cruelties, and fragile defenses. The question is not whether we possess darkness, but how we manage it. Are we ruled by it, or do we integrate it, harness it, transform it into something that serves rather than destroys? And as you look outward to read these signs in others, remember to turn inward too, for you are not exempt. You too have desires that frighten you, truths you avoid, and a secret relationship to power. Your unconscious leaves clues scattered, like breadcrumbs in your dreams, in the way your voice trembles when certain topics arise, in the people you choose to love. To live unconsciously is to wander blindfolded through a room full of knives. To awaken is to risk pain, but also to discover freedom. Let me leave you with this. Do not measure character by words alone. Watch the silences. Listen for the contradictions. Look where desire strains against restraint, where truth pierces. The veil of polite deception, where power either corrupts or ennobles. The unconscious speaks in these moments, and if you dare to listen, you will know who stands before you and who you truly are. You might ask me, why does it matter so much to know the true character of others? Why should you train your vision to detect such subtle cracks in the mask? Because, my friend, your destiny is not only shaped by your own unconscious, but by the unconsciouses of those with whom you bind your fate. The people you allow into your intimate circle become the architects of your reality. They build with bricks of influence, affection, betrayal, or loyalty. One wrong alliance can poison your days for decades. One unrecognized predator in the guise of a friend can feast upon your joy, leaving only a husk of yourself behind. It is not merely that people lie to you. Far more dangerous is when they lie to themselves. For the unconscious, that cunning puppeteer is tireless in its disguises. It is not content with deceiving the world. It deceives its own host. A man believes he loves his wife for her mind, but dreams of younger flesh. A woman believes she cherishes independence, yet sabotages every opportunity for freedom. A leader proclaims moral virtue while arranging secret corridors for pleasure. These contradictions are not hypocrisy in the moral sense, they are symptoms. They are the echoes of inner conflict between ID, ego, and superego. And until you understand this theater within the mind, you will take people at face value and suffer the consequences. Let me tell you a story. A patient once came to me, brilliant lawyer, celebrated in society. To the world, he was a man of impeccable principle. But night after night, he dreamed he was on trial, accused of unspeakable crimes. He would awaken in terror, sweat-soaked, certain that some hidden truth would erupt into daylight. Through our sessions, it became clear his greatest fear was not punishment, but exposure. His public morality was a fortress built to contain desires he himself could not admit. He devoted his days to persecuting others' misdeeds because it allowed him to avoid his own. In the courtroom, he found relief from the turmoil inside. His relentless pursuit of justice was, in truth, an unconscious strategy of self-purification. He needed to believe he was righteous, for to glimpse the monstrous desires lurking beneath would shatter his fragile ego. Here, then, is your lesson. Excessive virtue often conceals the most dangerous shadows. The man who must loudly proclaim his fidelity, his honesty, his generosity, is frequently the one fighting fiercest against his own inner demons. For he suspects, in some buried layer of his mind, that he is not what he pretends to be. And so he shouts his virtues to drown out the whisper of the ID. It is no different with the woman who insists she desires nothing. Her serene face, her quiet demeanor, her gentle refusals, these can seduce you into believing she is pure simplicity. But observe how the world seems perpetually indebted to her, how her sacrifices are quietly displayed like relics in a glass case. Such a woman often manipulates through absence, through subtle reminders that she has given up so much, that she deserves compensation in devotion, attention, or loyalty. She has learned the art of ruling others, not by open demand, but through silent guilt. Her relationship with desire is masked as renunciation, but the hunger remains, disguised as virtue. Some of you wonder why you attract the same kind of people into your lives over and over. Why lovers who begin as adoration end as torment. Why friends become judges, why employers become tyrants. It is not mere coincidence. Your unconscious is magnetized toward what it knows, even if what it knows is pain. The child who grows up unseen will forever seek eyes that look upon him with recognition. And sometimes he will mistake the glare of a predator for the gaze of love. This is why I say, to know others, you must know yourself. For your unconscious writes the script of your relationships. It chooses your cast of characters, designs the scenes of attraction, conflict, reconciliation, and heartbreak. You believe you fall in love by choice, but often you fall into a repetition. Compulsion, a return to the scene of an ancient wound, hoping to transform the ending. There is no tragedy so subtle as this, to be drawn again and again to those who mirror the wound you most wish to heal. To crave from them what was denied in childhood, a father's approval, a mother's tenderness, a sibling's loyalty, and to discover, each time, that the wound remains. The unconscious seeks resolution through repetition, like a needle tracing the same groove on a record. And so you become both the prisoner and the warden of your own suffering. I recall a young woman who sought my counsel. She fell in love, repeatedly, with men who belittled her dreams. Each relationship began with enchantment. She was enthralled by their confidence, their decisiveness, their masculine energy. But slowly, inevitably, each man revealed contempt for her ambitions, calling them childish, unrealistic. She would plead, justify, diminish herself to preserve the connection. Why, she asked me, tears streaming down her face, do I choose men who break my spirit? I asked about her childhood. Her father, she said, was a man of great charm but harsh judgment. He scoffed at her creative pursuits, calling them foolish. As a child, she learned that love must be earned by surrendering her desires. And so, unconsciously, she sought men like her father, hoping that this time, if she could win their approval, she might finally redeem her childhood humiliation. She was trapped in the same scene, hoping to rewrite the ending. And this, I tell you, is the power of the unconscious. It does not simply store memories, It demands reenactment. It hungers to return to unfinished business, to transform shame into triumph. But rarely does this strategy succeed. More often, it deepens the wound. You think you are choosing a lover, a friend, a business partner. But in truth, your unconscious is choosing someone to play a role in your personal drama. This is why understanding the three measures of character desire, truth and power, is not merely intellectual curiosity. It is survival. For if you cannot read these signals, you will invite into your life those who wound you in familiar ways. Look at the small moments. How does a person react when denied what they want? Do they respect boundaries, or do they push? How do they handle truth when it is uncomfortable? Do they speak plainly, or do they twist language like a weapon? And how do they hold power, with grace or with cruelty? These questions are not philosophical luxuries. They are the instruments of your protection. But do not imagine that others are the only danger. You too carry these forces within. Your own relationship to desire, truth, and power shapes how you love, how you work, how you suffer. You may speak of wanting honesty, but your superego trembles at the thought of admitting your secret longings. You may claim to value peace, but secretly delight in the chaos of conflict because it feels like home. You may preach humility while longing for dominion over those who once made you feel small. Nothing reveals the architecture of your psyche so much as your choice of companions, your taste in lovers, your response to criticism, your ability to tolerate solitude. For every human soul is a labyrinth of corridors, some gilded with light, others echoing with hidden screams. To know yourself is to walk these corridors with courage, to shine a lantern into the corners where your ego trembles to look. For there, amid the shadows, lie the forces that dictate not only who you attract, but who you become. There is a cruelty hidden in the human condition, that we are drawn, again and again, to that which wounds us most deeply. The repetition compulsion is one of the most relentless forces in the unconscious. It is the ghost of old injuries, demanding acknowledgement. The child who is unseen seeks lovers who refuse to truly see him. The girl who felt unworthy of affection attaches herself to those who grant only fleeting glimpses of tenderness, withholding it like water in the desert. We return to the scene of the crime, not because we are foolish, but because the psyche hopes to transform agony into triumph. Yet in doing so, we often recreate our suffering with new actors in the same old play. This is why you must observe those three silent witnesses to a person's soul: desire, truth, and power. They are the unconscious fingerprints left upon every action, every silence, every glance. A person can mask their words, but they cannot entirely mask these forces. They bleed through the gaps, like light seeping through the edges of a closed door. Consider desire once more. It is not enough to ask what a person says they want. You must observe the lengths to which they will go to satisfy that desire. Does a man speak of ambition, yet live passively, endlessly preparing but never acting? Does a woman claim she wants love, but repeatedly choose partners incapable of offering it? We reveal ourselves not through proclamations, but through our capacity or our refusal to suffer for what we desire. Desire is costly. It demands sacrifice, discomfort, sometimes even humiliation. Those who desire without paying this price are not truly committed to what they seek. Their longing is a performance, a drama enacted for the audience of their own ego. In my consulting room, I have heard countless men and women speak passionately of change, of new careers, of leaving toxic relationships. Yet when faced with the moment of action, they retreat. Why? Because to change is to risk not only failure, but the terror of discovering that the problem lay within themselves. All along. Observe, too, the relationship to truth. Few things terrify the human soul as much as true self-knowledge. For truth threatens to reveal that we are not as noble as we pretend, not as helpless as we claim, not as innocent as we wish to believe. So we invent convenient narratives, half-truths, illusions that protect the delicate architecture of the ego. We edit the past to make ourselves victims rather than participants. We distort memories, blur motives, cast ourselves in heroic roles. Truth is relentless. It seeps into dreams, into slips of the tongue, into the peculiar trembling of a voice when certain topics arise. In my practice, I have often watched a patient speak lightly of some trivial matter, only for their eyes to fill with tears. The conscious mind says, "This is unimportant," but the unconscious screams otherwise. For truth always leaves traces like footprints in snow. Some people fear the truth so deeply that they become virtuosos of deception, not merely toward others, but toward themselves. They cloak themselves in righteousness, in moral superiority, in the mask of the martyr. But examine how swiftly they turn vicious when their narrative is questioned. Their indignation is not born of principle, but of terror, for the collapse of their illusion would leave them naked before the chaos within. Then there is power. This, perhaps, is the most complex of all. Power seduces because it promises safety. It whispers that if we can control the world, we will never again feel helpless, humiliated, or unseen. But power also corrupts, and the mind that cannot tolerate its own vulnerability often becomes tyrannical toward others. I have witnessed power wielded with quiet dignity and with savage cruelty. The true character of a person is revealed in how they hold power over those who are weaker. Watch how a man treats the waiter who brings his meal. Observe how a woman speaks to someone who cannot benefit her socially or financially. In these moments, the unconscious speaks louder than any declaration of values. There are those who crave power not for its own sake, but because they believe it will finally silence the tormenting voice of the superego. They imagine that if they can become powerful enough, rich enough, admired enough, they will no longer feel inadequate or ashamed. But no amount of external power can cure the wounds of the inner world. The superego does not bow to wealth or status. It remains an implacable judge, whispering accusations in the silence of the night. On the other hand, there are those who flee from power, who disclaim ambition, who prefer to remain small and invisible. They tell themselves they are virtuous, modest, above the fray. But often this is merely fear disguised as humility. They fear that to step into power would expose their flaws, their contradictions, their hunger for validation. They fear that to stand in the light would make them vulnerable to attack. And so they choose obscurity, believing it protects them, but it imprisons them instead. Let me speak plainly. You cannot avoid power. Even in refusing it, you are making a choice about how you relate to it. And how you relate to power determines whether you will live as an architect of your life or as a passive participant in a drama written by others. Perhaps you believe you are immune to these forces. You think, I know myself. I have nothing to hide. But the unconscious is a patient adversary. It waits for moments of fatigue, of grief, of passion to reveal itself. It whispers in the ear of the lover who finds herself confessing secrets she swore she'd never share. It guides the trembling hand that sends a message late at night to a person one has sworn to forget. It stirs the sudden, inexplicable rage toward a stranger who accidentally blocks our path. Our slips, our contradictions, our forbidden longings, these are not accidents. They are messages. The unconscious speaks through these fissures, reminding us that we are not singular beings, but battlegrounds, where desire, morality, and survival fight an endless war. If you wish to see others clearly, begin by examining yourself. How do you handle your own desires? Are you honest about what you want, or do you bury it beneath duty and fear? How do you speak your truth? Do you confess your mistakes, or do you weave stories to protect your image? How do you wield the power you possess, however small? Do you use it to uplift or to wound? These questions are not academic. They are the keys to liberation. For only when you know your own shadows can you stop projecting them onto others. Only then can you choose relationships based not on unconscious compulsion, but on conscious choice. Only then can you walk through the world without mistaking friend for enemy, lover for captor, truth for illusion. I tell you this not to frighten you, but to free you. For the unconscious is not your enemy. It is your hidden self, longing to be integrated, longing to be heard. It is the keeper of your deepest truths, your buried griefs, your untapped strength. To live without knowing you're unconscious is to walk blindfolded into traffic, hoping not to be struck. But to know it to truly listen to its messages is to step into the light of your own life. There, even your darkness becomes a source of power, and the forces that once enslaved you become your allies. Let me ask you now, do you have the courage to see yourself as you truly are? For the knowledge of character, yours and others, demands sacrifice. It demands the sacrifice of illusions you have cherished, of comforting lies you have repeated so often they have become indistinguishable from truth. The psyche clings to these illusions because they protect you from the abyss. They shield you from the realization that the world is indifferent and that love is never guaranteed. To strip them away is to stand naked before your own desires, your own lies, your own hunger for power. Yet I insist, this is the only path to freedom. For your illusions are chains, even if they are gilded. And so we come back, always, to the three things that reveal the true character of a person: desire, truth, and power. I have spent a lifetime peering into these abysses, guiding people to see that which they dread. And I tell you this, most suffering is not caused by what happens to us, but by our refusal to see ourselves clearly. Consider a man who claims he wishes only to be left in peace. He withdraws from life, avoids conflict, declines opportunities. He insists he desires nothing, that he is content with simplicity. Yet observe how often he complains that he is overlooked, unappreciated, forgotten. His apparent humility conceals a hidden longing to be recognized as special precisely because of his detachment. He wishes to be seen as above the vulgar pursuits of others, as one who has transcended petty desires. But beneath his silence seethes resentment, for the world fails to grant him the tribute he believes is owed to such rare purity. Here, you see the contradiction between spoken desire and unconscious demand. Or take the woman who devotes herself tirelessly to caring for others. She is the friend who answers every call, the partner who sacrifices her own needs, the colleague who volunteers for every task. To the world, she appears selfless, noble, yet inside she harbors a searing bitterness. For though she gives endlessly, she secretly believes her giving entitles her to loyalty, admiration, even worship. When these tributes do not come, her suppressed anger erupts in passive aggression, in sudden withdrawals, in icy silences. She becomes the silent accuser, forcing others to pay a debt they did not know they owed. Such people are not monsters. They are simply unconscious. Their suffering arises because they do not know themselves. They have not recognized that their actions are driven not by pure virtue, but by hidden bargains with the world. See how good I am, and love me. When the world fails to fulfill its side of this unspoken contract, they feel betrayed. This is why knowledge of oneself is the highest form of power. It allows you to see where you are negotiating unconsciously. It reveals where your generosity is not a gift, but a hidden demand. It exposes where your claimed virtues are actually shields for the terror of rejection. To know yourself is to recognize that desire is never simple. You may wish for love, but also fear its intimacy. You may seek freedom, but also dread the loneliness it brings. You may want success, but tremble at the envy it provokes. Each desire is braided with ambivalence, with conflicting currents of hope and fear. Only by examining these hidden threads can you act with true freedom. The same is true of truth. Many believe they love truth, but what they really love is the comfort of certainty. True truth, raw, unsettling, uncompromising, is often intolerable. It reveals that you have been complicit in your own suffering. It shows that you have lied to yourself about why you remain in a dying relationship, why you sabotage your own success, why you cling to people who harm you. A patient once said to me, "I stay because he needs me." But when we explored her dreams, her slips of the tongue, her moments of panic, it became clear that she stayed because she feared the emptiness of her own solitude. She cloaked this fear in the language of loyalty and sacrifice. She had convinced herself she was noble, when in fact she was terrified. This is how the unconscious disguises fear as virtue. And power is perhaps the most exquisite lie of all. Many people think power resides in grand gestures, in domination, in commanding respect. But true power is silent. It is the calm center that cannot be rattled by praise or criticism. It is the ability to remain rooted in one's own reality, unshaken by the projections and expectations of others. Some wield power as a shield, believing that controlling others will protect them from pain. But power wielded in fear inevitably turns destructive. It isolates, breeds suspicion, and invites revolt. The leader who cannot tolerate dissent surrounds himself with flatterers. The lover who demands obedience becomes a tyrant in the bedroom. The friend who insists on loyalty becomes an emotional jailer. These are all symptoms of a relationship to power that is driven by the unconscious terror of vulnerability. Others reject power entirely, preferring to remain invisible. They tell themselves they are virtuous in their humility. But this, too, is a kind of power, a negative power. It is the power to refuse engagement, to avoid responsibility, to escape the discomfort of standing in the light. Such people often harbor secret fantasies of being discovered, of having their hidden greatness recognized, without ever having to risk exposure. Here is a truth that may unsettle you. No one escapes the dance of desire, truth, and power. Even the saint has desires. Even the wise man struggles with truth. Even the humble soul wields power in subtle ways. The question is not whether these forces exist in you, but whether you know how they operate. When you meet someone, listen to how they speak of others. Do they blame the world for all their troubles, or do they recognize their part in the drama? Do they tell stories that paint them always as hero or victim? Such narratives are clues. The unconscious always leaves fingerprints. Look, too, at how people handle disappointment. Do they rage, withdraw, manipulate, or do they accept reality and adapt? Observe how they speak of those with less power. Is there contempt in their voice, or compassion? These are signs of character. Deeper than any resume or reputation dot, the same applies to you. How do you react when you are criticized? Do you lash out, withdraw, or become consumed by shame? When you are denied something you desire, do you accept it, or do you scheme to obtain it through subtle means? When someone else shines, do you feel admiration or envy? These moments are not flaws to be hidden, but windows into your unconscious. I am not here to condemn you for your contradictions. I am here to show you that they are inevitable. The psyche is a realm of conflicts. You are not a single, unified being. You are a parliament of desires, fears, memories, and defenses. Your conscious mind is merely the spokesman for decisions already made by forces you only dimly perceive. To live wisely is to recognize these forces, to observe how they shape your choices, your relationships, your destiny. For when you know them, you can begin to choose differently. You can love without the hidden demand to be saved. You can speak truth even when it costs you comfort. You can wield power without becoming its slave. And so I say again, if you wish to know the true character of another, look at how they handle desire, truth, and power. But if you wish to be free, look first within. For the deepest deception is not the mask others wear, but the mask you wear before your own soul. Perhaps now you feel a certain weight in your chest, a tightness, as though some hidden truth has stirred and begun to press upon the door of consciousness. Let it press. Do not turn away, for everything I have spoken to you leads here. The truth that your life, in all its triumphs and tragedies, has been shaped not merely by external events, but by the secret architecture of your own unconscious. And it is this architecture, this hidden blueprint of desire, truth, and power that determines the quality of your days, the faces you choose to trust, the lips you choose to kiss, the betrayals you endure, the victories you dare to claim. There are those who spend their entire existence running from this realization. They fill their hours with noise, with endless work, with ceaseless distraction. They scroll, they gossip, they accumulate possessions. Anything to avoid hearing the whisper in the dark, that they are strangers to themselves. Yet no fortress of distraction can protect you forever, for the unconscious is patient. It waits. It sends its messages in symptoms, in anxiety that blooms for no apparent reason, in exhaustion that sleep cannot cure, in the mysterious melancholy that descends, in the quiet hours before dawn. And so, you see, to know the true character of another is to protect yourself from illusions that can destroy you. But to know your own true character, that is salvation. For only then can you cease reenacting the old wounds of your childhood in every relationship. Only then can you love with eyes open, speak truth without trembling, and wield your power without cruelty. I have said that 3 things reveal the true character of a person: how they handle desire, how they engage with truth, and how they relate to power. Let me leave you now with how these 3 forces, once recognized and integrated, can become not prisons, but instruments of liberation. First, desire. You must understand that desire is not your enemy. It is life itself moving through you. It is the current that pushes you toward growth, connection, creation. But it is also the force that can lead you into ruin if left unconscious. Your task is not to extinguish your desires, but to know them, to name them, and to examine whether they truly belong to you, or whether they were planted there by parents, by lovers, by society. To desire consciously is to live with vitality and direction. To desire unconsciously is to stumble through the world like a sleepwalker, chasing shadows. Next, truth. The mind fears truth because it so often carries pain. It reveals that you have lied to yourself, that you have played small to avoid rejection, that you have betrayed your own values to gain approval. Yet truth is the only path to real intimacy with yourself and with others. Every meaningful relationship is built not upon perfection, but upon the willingness to speak the unspeakable. To say, this is who I am, with my hungers, my fears, my flaws, and to ask gently, who are you, really? Truth is the bridge across which love travels. Without it, you are left with only performance. And finally, power. Many imagine that power means the ability to control others. But true power is the ability to control yourself, to feel rage rising and not be ruled by it, to feel desire burning and not be enslaved to it, to stand alone if necessary and still know your worth. True power is quiet. It is not the voice that shouts the loudest in the room. It is the presence that cannot be shaken by either praise or condemnation. It is the light that does not flicker when the winds of opinion blow. When you possess this kind of power, you become unassailable, not because the world stops trying to wound you, but because you know yourself too well to be deceived. Let me tell you, the unconscious is not a monster lurking in your depths, waiting to destroy you. It is a hidden part of you, yearning to be integrated. It holds not only your darkness, but also your creativity, your courage, your most radiant possibilities. It is the source of your intuition, your art, your capacity to love deeply. To reject it is to live a half-life, forever afraid of your own depths. But to turn toward it is to become whole. Many have asked me, is there any hope of changing these patterns? Or are we condemned to repeat our parents' mistakes, to reenact the same painful stories? To them I say, yes, there is hope, but not in denial, not in blind optimism. The hope lies in consciousness. For what is made conscious can be transformed. That which remains unconscious will rule your life, and you will call it fate. So I invite you now, with all the solemnity of a man who has spent a lifetime gazing into the hidden corridors of the mind, dare to know yourself. Examine your desires. Speak your truth, even when your voice shakes. Hold your power gently, neither grasping for it nor fleeing from it. For it is only in this profound honesty with yourself that freedom is born. Look around you. Every person you meet is a mystery, a secret world of longing, terror, and hope. Some will harm you, though they mean no harm. Some will love you, though they cannot say it. Some will mirror your deepest wounds. Others will help you heal. If you wish to know whom to trust, whom to love, whom to keep at arm's length, observe how they handle desire, truth, and power. These are the compass points by which you will navigate the ocean of human connection. And remember, the same compass must be turned inward. For the person whose character you most need to know is yourself. Let me leave you with this final thought. The unconscious is the author of your story. But you, if you dare to become conscious, can pick up the pen and begin to write new chapters. You can interrupt the repetition. You can love differently. You can suffer less. You can finally become the person you were meant to be, not perfect, but profoundly, radiantly human. So tell me now, are you ready to see yourself without illusions? Are you prepared to look into the depths and claim your truth, your desire, your power? The choice is yours. The key is in your hand. If my words have stirred something in you, if you felt seen, even in your shadows, I invite you to share your thoughts below. Not for me, but for yourself. For speaking truth, even in a comment, is a step toward freedom. Remember, what you do not bring to consciousness, you will meet again as fate. Be brave, be curious, and above all, know thyself.